Are you ready to learn what red flags keep an eye out for when looking for love?
Then we got you covered. I'm Brianna,
And I'm Alex.
and this is the podcast where we unpack reality TV and call out the bullshit.
So that you show up confidently while dating and in relationships. Welcome to Ditch the Script. Oh my God.
I love it. Hey.
Hi, friend. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. How are you?
I'm also hanging in there. I feel lately that I've kind of been flying by the seat of my pants in life and what we call adulting.
Sure. Absolutely. I'm with you on that. Like, every day is a new day. People swore that adulting would, things would fall into a routine. I keep hearing about a routine. Don't see it.
Yeah. I I do have my AM routine, but it's not as routine like as I would like it because if full transparency, because that's one of my core values, I violate my own boundaries in the morning quite often. So we're all going to hold Alex accountable and give me a slap on the wrist that needs to stop because quite literally with the reel that I just posted, it's all about filling your own cup up first. And I need to take my own advice.
Yeah, I'm with you. I talk to people all fucking day about like healthy boundaries, conflict resolution, managing anxiety, and I'm here raw dogging it. Like raw dogging life, being like, I don't need to breathe. Like, bitch, breathe. Breathe.
Ain't that the truth? This is why we all need our own coaches, our own therapists, and people to
Good
lean
friends.
on.
Yeah.
100.
Yeah. We're gonna get there. We're gonna be fine.
100. Oh yeah, we are. We snap back,
We
That's the thing.
do. Yeah, we do snap back. Look at us. Get back into
That's
it.
what's up.
We see each other
Yeah.
really soon.
In RL.
Yeah. In
Oh my
RL.
God. I'm so excited. I
Yeah.
know. Literally 7 days.
It's gonna
7 days.
be, we keep thinking about it. Like, we have this really awesome trip. Like, we're really gonna see each other. It's gonna be great. It's also gonna be your 30th birthday.
It is the big 3-0. I'm so
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does turning 30 mean anything to you?
Full transparency again. January of this year, I had a full-on meltdown with my therapist about it.
Yeah. Relatable.
I was like, oh, I just thought. And then like once I cried about it in that session, ever since then, I've actually been stoked. So I
cool.
feel like I let those fears and those thoughts, because like, again, all it was me just like, I thought my life would look like this by the time I'm 30, and all of us get there. And so admitting that and like processing that really just helped me kind of move through it. And now I'm like, hell, I'm going to be 30. Hey.
Yeah.
I think also the fact that we're going to have such a fun trip and a lot of fun festivities are taking place, that also helps quite a bit. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to move through the this is what my life was
Panic.
supposed to look like at 30. Yeah. Yeah, moving through the panic, because I think that that's really relatable, and I really I think that we're sold and we buy the
my God.
have your shit together by 30. And especially
horseshit.
for women, and it's just like, yeah, it's horseshit for sure. Like I understand that this is a different generation, that we don't follow the same timeline trends of previous generations, and honestly, for good reason. We have more choices, we have more resources, independent resources, so therefore we have more independent individual power, so that gives us the opportunities to choose what our family lives look like and what our professional lives look like. And like, fuck this is what it should look like by now, because I find that when we get stuck in that, we're ignoring all of the amazing things that we're doing, or that we're on our way to doing.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And not only that, I know I talk about my pseudo parents all the time. I was just with them for a full week. And the reality is that even people who are in their 70s do not have it together.
Yeah. Oh my God. So
And
useful.
so it's like, can we please take the pressure off of ourselves, and can society please put a stop to the madness with like marketing us this and spoon feeding us this message that it's like, you need to have this, this, and this accomplished, and kids by this age, and married at this age, and blah, blah, blah. It's just, it's not true. According to whose standard? Like, that is not gospel.
Yeah.
So be gone. Be
Be
gone with all of
gone.
that baloney, and you get to create the life of your dreams. And the sooner you start doing it, more power to you, and the better and more fulfilling your life will be. And so I am very thankful that I cried and lost my shit over this about a month ago. And now, ever since then, I've just been like focusing on all of the wonderful things that are coming in my life and how thankful I am for where I am. Because I
Yeah.
could be in a much worse position,
Totally.
you know? And
Yeah,
so it's
absolutely.
like, let me give myself credit where it's freaking due. Like,
Yeah.
look at what you've
Otherwise,
done
like,
for yourself.
what's all the work worth it then? Like, what's it for?
Yeah. To
If we're not
chase
gonna
this
like,
carrot, this
yeah,
invisible carrot, the rest of
yeah.
my goddamn life.
You know, America really wants us to chase that fucking carrot.
Yeah. And all it does is put us in a grave way too early. Like,
Yeah,
no,
totally.
let's live life. Let's
Stress.
enjoy the wonderful things and savor the moments that we don't get back.
Yeah.
Because, like, time keeps on ticking.
Ticking,
So,
ticking, ticking. Something that,
yeah. Time keeps on ticking.
no, I get it though. When I was approaching 30, like I had this moment, and I'm pretty good about getting myself out of the victim mentality. And
Totally.
disclaimer, the asterisk here is I worked really, really, really hard to learn how to get myself out of that mentality. It's not like a
Yeah.
gift.
No, it's a skill.
It's a skill, one that was practiced. But like I could easily sit here and feel really fucking bad and in my deficit about being as single as a one-hit wonder jingle. You know what I mean? Like I could feel really bad about that. And instead I choose to give myself the opportunity to consider all of the time that I have had to develop all of the very deeply satisfying friendships that I have, and
Yeah.
how a relationship for me and has been really distracting from giving those relationships the nurturing that they deserve. And I'm really lucky that I have really amazing friends in my life. And so I'm proud of that, rather than feeling
Yeah.
like, oh no, what a waste of time. Like, no, what a good use of my time.
Exactly. Because that's what matters. You can't take it with you, you know? It's so true. It's like, what matters are the connections we make in this time frame that we are on this planet doing whatever, participating in this simulation we're in. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. It's a simulation.
Yeah, it's like focus on what you want to focus on, the things that make you happy. Like, why not?
Yeah.
You know, of course you
Yeah.
need to be responsible and do la 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 la, whatever, sure. But
Yeah.
you've figured it out and you've made it this far, and you will only continue to figure it out. So
Yeah.
enjoy
Yeah.
your life,
Fail
live
forward.
a little. Yes.
Yeah.
100. Yeah, so I'm really stoked to see you in real life. It's going to be fun. I'm taking you to
Yeah.
Vegas. I'm popping Bri's Vegas cherry.
Yeah. Whoops. Be careful. Let's use protection.
Oh my yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
gonna be
really
a fun time.
excited. I'm also like, I love a weekend where I'm looking forward to like a hotel room all by myself.
I get that.
Oh my God. That
I
sounds
get
like a
that.
motherfucking dream. And like,
Especially this place.
I live alone,
Like,
but I don't have someone making my bed for me.
exactly. I'm like that too. And it
Yeah.
smells just so clean, and like you don't have to be the one to clean it. So it's just like, yeah.
Sounds so great. Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
excited. Okay. So we have a
too.
lot more to share about our upcoming IRL
Festivities.
hang. There will obviously be a lot of content coming your way, so that's really exciting. And then keep an ear out for stories that we share once we are post Vegas
Trip. Oh my God. It's going to be lit.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
epitome of it.
The
Yeah.
epitome of.
Yep.
Okay. Married at First Sight. Let's dive right
Yeah.
in.
Let's.
We're on episode 7, and we've already had a couple drop off. 10 days of
Yep.
marriage. Chris and Alyssa, we're closing the loop on you. Goodbye. See you later. Hope you're healing.
Wish you all the best.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
It's
would
not you, it's me.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, that's a good full circle moment. We have a question later that's how do I deal with the it's not you, it's me text. So I love
Caller.
that.
Didn't know that. I haven't scrolled that far down on our agenda today, so
Okay. Listen,
that's meant to be.
It's a teaser. So we're saying goodbye to them, and I hope that they never do a reality television show ever again. Except maybe Chris. Maybe Chris could really use some like on-air exposure to eligible women in his area that want to meet him. Yeah.
Yes.
Love that.
Yeah.
Alyssa
He is going to be swept up.
Maybe you will be available for a therapist of your liking in your area.
Yeah.
That would be really great.
Agreed. And she also said in the episode last night that she wants to move to Texas. And I think that's a great decision for some of your values.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That's so true. Politically. What she's looking
and the
for.
aesthetics.
Oh my God. So true.
You get on that plane. You go to Texas.
Go live on a farm. We love that for you.
Yeah. We do.
And if you find me on Psychology Today, please don't message me because I know too much about you. Thank you.
You need an unbiased therapist.
Yeah. If she reached out to me, I just had this thought. If she reached out to me, I'd be like,
Decline.
It feels like a conflict of interest because I have a podcast that has sort of been debunking some of your behavior. I don't think that you're going to like that.
Yeah. It's kind of like being on a jury, you know? You need to be, you can't
unattached.
have that.
Unattached.
Yeah.
We're making too much money off of you, Alyssa. Sorry. We got to go. Okay. All right. We're rerouting. Let's start with Katina and Olajuwon.
Okay. Let's.
So, I always do this, but let's back up and I'm going to set the scene. So what we're seeing of everyone is they're really in like their first few days of living with each other. And so we're obviously seeing more issues come up, more opportunities for miscommunication in all of the couples in lots of different ways. We're seeing, I think that this is a moment where we're seeing a lot of our couples as individuals falling into their old patterns when they were single.
Yes.
Or in previous relationships.
Agreed.
Scene is set.
Agreed. Yeah. So excuse me, I had a little mini belch just there. When we first happened upon O in this episode, he's actually talking with his friend Jeff. And first of all, I love that this dude, like, I love their relationship because Jeff is comfortable calling O out and kind of being like, all right, wait, hold the phone here. And so Jeff asks Olajuwon, hey, have you spotted any red flags yet? And I thought it was hilarious that Olajuwon's response was like, she went grocery shopping and only brought home bread and water. And his friend was like, that's you got to get out of your head. That doesn't mean that she's not a good wife or that's like, indicative of her character. It just means that she's learning how to shop for two people. And that she's trying to learn how to cook for you too. Like Katina's told us hey, I'm used to going out. I like going out. That's usually how I eat is I get something or I go somewhere, And so I liked that Jeff kind of checked him and was like, I don't know if I'd consider that a red flag. This is something that you guys are going to have to grow together.
Yeah, give her an opportunity to fulfill the expectation that you are setting. And he did call him out. He was like, you do expect a lot. So she's not totally resisting my husband wants me to cook for him. She just, listen, you're taking someone who doesn't cook and expecting them to go from there to cooking all of your meals all the time.
Julie, a fucking child.
Yeah, exactly. So let her take some steps there because she's already moving towards it. So recognize that effort. Totally.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, we had Katina and her friend sit down, which I thought was way more of an eye-opening conversation. What was your 2 cents on that?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the friendship of someone who's being honest with her friend about the concerns that they have with the partner that they just married. And in this case, it's someone that they just met. So I sort of think about it as if your friends were just getting to know your new partner through your early stages of dating, and marriage is not even like on the table, but it's this much more serious because marriage has already been signed, sealed, and delivered. So I appreciated that, but I also want to I want to name that her friend was raising her concerns, which she had every right to do, based on the last experience that she had with Olajuwon, which was a like short brunch right at like the day after the wedding. And that was when her biggest complaint was like, this dude was talking so much that it seemed like he didn't want us to ask any questions. What I will say is, based on what we have gotten to know from Olajuwon in the episodes past, is that I don't think that that's actually what he was trying to avoid. I think that that's just his stress response.
Agreed.
He just talks too much.
And he admits that he has ADHD, which that's also a symptom of that, you know?
Yeah.
Speaking from personal experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, you can like rattle off and talk to a wall for hours, you know, and that's something that those who, you know, struggle with that. I don't even like to say struggle because I feel like it can also be a superpower.
Have a relationship with ADHD.
Yeah, exactly. Beautiful verbiage there. Thank you. And so, yeah. And I think Katina said, you know, I appreciate your concern. I get it, you know, and her friend really just wanted to point out, like, I want to make sure you're not just turning a blind eye to this. And she was like, heard you. Okay. And so we shall see what, you know, how that moves forward. But then we have their housewarming party, which was fun.
Yeah.
Did you notice anything in particular during those interactions?
Yes. So of the friends that Katina brought, the two women that were there did not include her friend that was raising concerns. And it only included one person of the three that joined Olajuwon for brunch right after the wedding. And she had the same feeling. So there's like a confessional before they walk into the apartment where they're like, they were like, we're just going to like see how this goes. But honestly, like didn't love him from the first impression. But we like want to be open-minded and we want to like show up and like see what it's about, but we're going to take it like minute by minute. And I think what they noticed is that Olajuwon is, he's easily excitable, but also just like, that's just who he is. Like there was less cause for concern. I think that my biggest red flags in the dynamic of Katina and Olajuwon is that Olajuwon is he's so forward facing as this, like, I'm all in, like, this is amazing. Like, you're amazing. You have such amazing friends. And then secretly he's like, I have doubts. And then he'll name it in like a one-off comment privately. And it's like, you're putting on a front, which suggests this like desire to be perceived as in control and happy, content. And then secretly you're like, I'm worried about having sex and how that's going to change me or the dynamic. So those were my concerns. What about you?
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I thought, I loved that her friends were like, I'm kind of concerned they haven't had sex yet because sex is really important to keep Katina. And that is like a big factor in relationships. So and to be honest, I was surprised that and I think I said that last week, like I was kind of surprised that they hadn't consummated their marriage yet.
Yeah.
And I also know that on the other side of, you know, sexual intimacy comes a lot of that intimacy, vulnerability, a willingness to be more open. And I just feel like it would really behoove them in their relationship to see how that impacts everything.
Yeah.
You know, because what are you waiting for? That needs to happen eventually at some point, you know?
Time to get it on. I'm surprised they didn't do that like right after they met with Pastor Cal. Maybe like not that evening, but like, come on, get into it.
After.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I loved that when she connected with Jeff, who was there at the housewarming party, Olajuwon's friend, he asked her, you know, how's it going? And she says, you know, I feel like it's going well. And they talk about Olajuwon's short fuse. And Katina says, like, you know, I've just been kind of like taking a step back, letting him do his thing. And his friend says, like, that's the best way to handle it. Like, stay calm when he has a temper, you know, and also don't take it personally. And
Right.
so she was like, yeah, I felt like that was the way to handle it. And so good to know. And like, it was a really good conversation. I felt for his friend and her kind of commiserating on like, okay, this is a part of a Olajuwon and like, here's the best way to navigate it, because that's what all healthy relationships require. We all have our own version of red flags. So it's just like, how do you manage your partner's red flags when they come
Yeah.
up, you know? And I want to say, like, let's not step into enabling where the expectation is that they don't ever have to try and improve or manage their own red flags. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm just saying we need to meet in the middle. And
Yeah.
so the fact that Katina's that conscious of like, okay, when he does this, this is how I am, is really great awareness. And then as far as her friends chit-chatting with Olajuwon, I loved that they used the word patience, and they were like, you need to give her the same patience that she gives you
Yeah.
when it comes to everything, learning how to cook, as well as like her being patient with his mood swings, you know, when they happen and all of that. And that reciprocity, again, reciprocity, golden ingredient for a healthy relationship. So those were my highlights from the housewarming evening.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's,
Overall, like
yeah,
not major deal breakers. What we can see, at
no,
least on the side of Katina, is that she's very, very bought into Olajuwon being her partner.
yeah,
And I think that that
yeah.
aids to the success that they're having so far.
Agreed. And I just want Olajuwon to meet her there. I feel that him holding back
Yes.
sexually, it's hitting back on like what Pastor Cal said. And it's funny because I thought of him the other night because I was talking to a client about this last night. You know, when you're in a relationship and you've made the decision, like, I'm going to commit to this relationship and see this through, your actions have to follow suit with that. If you have even one big toe semi out, like, it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it's going to come crumbling down, because that one big toe that you have just slightly out in the doubts area of your mind is going to impact the way you interact and the behaviors that you have within your relationship. So it's
Yeah.
like, you need to buy in, especially since they already have the marriage license. It's like, you just got to be there. So,
I wonder if there's more to learn from Katina's side about Olajuwon, about what his concerns are, because we're hearing just even
yeah,
small glimpses about his concern with his friends, where he's like, we heard for the first time that he's worried that it'll change him. I don't really know what he means by that, you know? And so my
yeah,
guess is that Katina is not getting any of this insight, even the small bits that he's exploring and sharing out loud. So I think that
yeah,
that would need to be a conversation. Like, if you're in a relationship, whether you're married or you're dating, and one of you is wanting to have sex and the other is more resistant, there should be a non-judgmental conversation to explore what the barriers are, with zero expectations held, and to just sort of talk about safety. What's going to make you feel better about this? What would need to change? What is there some sort of reassurance that you need from me or that I can give to you? Like, whatever.
yeah.
So yeah, if he's worried about things changing, have a conversation about it so that you can work through it. Maybe it feels less scary
Navigate
then.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Alondron, you're not going to have a sexless marriage. So at some point, like I said, like, it's going to need to happen. So
Yeah.
be vulnerable with Katina. Allow her to meet you where you are and
Yeah.
provide whatever safety or comfort that you need to feel comfortable taking that next step.
Yeah.
Like, and I feel like he's in his head more. Katina's a good
Yeah.
catch.
Agreed.
Like, yeah. So let
And she's
her,
trusting
especially a
it.
good match for him. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So cool. Ding.
Okay.
Moving on.
Ding. Jasmina and
Jasmina and
Michael.
Michael. Mm. Mm,
This was
mm,
an
mm.
interesting scene of theirs to sort of
Yeah.
notice, because we start to see Jasmina open up, but we also start to see Michael get some insight as to why they've sort of gotten themselves locked into a stalemate
Gridlock.
cycle. Yeah. So his sister, with a lot of insight, just sort of shared, like, listen, she's a strong woman, and she's going to guard herself at the first sign of feeling emotionally unsafe or
Right.
being challenged in a way that's not intended for her to grow. Like, so what you're noticing is her locking up, and his sister's basically like, I've been there, I'm familiar with that, and I can see why that is happening. So I think we eventually start to see Jasmina loosen up when she starts to get to an experience her and Michael's dynamic being more playful as they sort of similar to how they first met each other. But she doesn't
Yes.
really allow that. So there's something positive here that I noticed, but also something negative. So she doesn't allow herself to feel that way until they're having their own housewarming where they're mixing their friends together, sibling and friends. However, while that definitely helps them break the ice and loosen up, I find it to be problematic that they're just relying on humor and also, honestly, like just sort of sarcasm and satire to
Yeah.
help them reconnect, which is sort of like false reconnection.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not emotional vulnerability. Because, you know, it's easy to connect and laugh with someone through sarcasm and teasing and like that kind of playful banter. That's something that even within friendships, like you can find that. But, and although that's great and it's a great dynamic to have even in a romantic relationship,
Yeah.
the foundation is a little sloppy right now with the two of them because of what has taken place on the honeymoon. And so they really need to have a heart to heart moment where she's able to express fully, you know, what she needs. And he needs to be able to express fully what he needs from Jasmina,
Yeah.
and they need to meet each other there because it's not sustainable to rely on having housewarming parties or friends around for the two of you to get along and to laugh,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I I want to say something that and Jasmina eventually got there at the housewarming party, but I love how eager Michael is to improve. Like anytime he has a conversation either with his sister or later with her friends, his first question is like, what do I do? How do I love
Yeah.
on her? How do I get through to her? When she
Yeah.
gets like this, how have you handled it in the past?
Yeah.
He's so eager to understand his partner. And what I wish he would have this conversation with her, which
Yeah.
makes me wonder if he's already too intimidated to ask those questions.
Yeah.
Because
Hmm.
again, Jasmina needs to be the one equipping him with the knowledge of like, this is what I need from a partner.
Exactly.
And so I love that about him. I wish he would ask her these questions. The funny thing that and I know you and I chatted really quickly on this privately before we hopped on, but when Jasmina goes to her friend's house and she's kind of like, well, we've hit some bumpy roads. And like, by the way, just to give you some context, this friend of hers has been engaged and with her fiance now for 8 years. So she's
Hmm.
like pretty put together as far as like a healthy understanding
The
of what
relationship
relationships
goes. Yeah.
require. Yeah. And so, you know, Jasmine is kind of venting to her about some of the ups and downs they've had. And her friend says, you need to communicate and you need to have conversations. And the more you do that, the better it gets. And I completely agree. Like, it's like riding a bike with any partner.
Hmm.
No two people on this planet communicate and interpret things the same way. And so it
Hmm.
really is. It's like you got to get on and you're going to fail a couple times. It's okay. You
Yeah.
just get
Keep
back on
trying.
and you keep trying. And the other thing that I thought was funny, sorry, do you want to?
No, no, carry on.
I saw you and I didn't want to like interrupt your thought, but just
No,
to add to
go.
this, you know, Jasmina starts to tell, because her friend was like talking about, I don't know if it was necessarily labeling it as Michael's stubbornness, but Jasmina voices, you know, when he thinks he's right, he thinks he's right.
Hmm.
And she was like, but that sounds like you though. And Jasmina was
Yeah.
like, no, I'm not like that. And she's like, but when I am right, I usually am right. And her friend kind of looked at her like, and here we go.
Proof is in
And
the pudding.
so
Yeah.
yeah, and I thought that was like, for us as the audience, it was funny because of the way it was, you know, edited and shown to us. But that is something, that's the first time I've ever heard anyone kind of say, Jasmina, be mindful of who you are in this dynamic too.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
like I really appreciated what you're hitting on as far as when you run into conflict and it doesn't go well, keep trying. Maybe not in the same way every time, because that's how
No.
you get gridlocked. But
Yep.
I think what a lot of couples end up doing is, in an effort to come away from conflict, instead of trying to work through conflict in different ways, asking different questions, taking different cues from each other, checking your own tone, checking your own emotional state. Instead, we just work towards avoiding it, which is sort of what we're seeing Jasmine and Michael do right now, which is they're avoiding having
Yeah.
a conversation. So when she's like, yeah, I know we need to get better at communicating, but we actually haven't really done that yet. And both parties
What
are
are we
sort of waiting
waiting
for the
for?
other to do it. She's feeling like it's Michael's, responsibility to start it again. And Michael's like, I'm fucking scared, so it's gonna have to be on her. So you know what I mean? And then we've come further and further away. And what it looks like in practice, or rather what it feels like, is like, oh, we're making progress because we're having a good time together. But really you haven't allowed yourself to come up against the same types of tensions because you're trying to
Yeah.
avoid it. So we'll likely see it come again with them, unless they try different
We
things.
shall. Yep. We shall. Anything else on
Okay.
these two?
No. Check. Boom.
Ding, ding, ding. Next.
Okay. So next, I wanted to talk about Mark and Lindsay, who go through a lot in this
Yeah.
episode. They go through a lot. So we sort of similar cadence to the other couples. Like there's one-on-one time with each other's friends, and then there's eventually like a housewarming, and then what we see more from Mark and Lindsay, where we get to, and we'll touch on in a moment, is like a big group hangout with all of the other couples. They go bowling. But what we're learning as Mark's spending time with one of his best friends is that he really doesn't like Lindsay's candor. He doesn't like
No.
how she expresses herself. He doesn't like how crass it is. He finds it to be cringy and sort of borderline offensive. And just to be general here, I think what we can objectively note is it's not behavior that Mark is comfortable with, so he takes issue with it, which is entirely his right to do so. But because of Mark's feelings in the relationship of like, I'm trying to commit to doing this, instead of just owning like, this is something that I don't like and I'm wondering if this is like the right partnership for me, he instead is trying to elicit Lindsay to change the way that she responds in these high tension or even just public situations. And what I can tell you about that is that you can let someone know, like, so he got insight from her close friend, which was like, when that's happening, it's probably best to let her know how it makes you feel. And so
Right.
he has every right to do so. And that's probably the best way he could express it, which he does not do successfully later on in this episode. But a person is only going to make changes in their behavior if they decide that that's valuable to them. So
Right.
I emphasize that because if I'm on the receiving end of someone being like, Brianna, you need to use less foul language, I'm gonna be like, who the fuck says so?
Fuck
You know?
that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like says who? You know
I
what I
like
mean?
my
Like,
F-bombs.
right. Like that to me is going to feel like you're asking me to change myself. But unless
Right.
I have some buy-in and I understand a little bit about why that makes you feel what it makes you feel and what you're sharing is valuable to me, I get to decide if it's valuable to me or not.
Yes.
That's
Yep.
the only time that I'm going to change, because I'm definitely not going to change just because you ask me to.
And nor should you, right?
Right.
And that's the thing with this dynamic is like, if Mark's made the decision that I also didn't care for the way he positioned it, but we'll get there in a second. Mark just
Yeah.
needs help communicating, and he
Yeah.
needs help standing up for himself. Because I feel that with the women he has experienced in his life with his mom and his landlord and all of that, I feel that he is intimidated by dominant personalities because that's what he's been surrounded by. I'm just
Yeah.
curious. Like I was noticing that I'm like, oh, this might be really triggering for him because of his relationship with his mom that we've heard interesting things about. So I'm just, a part of me, like my coach hat's like trying to connect the dots. But I only get this much of, we don't
Yeah.
see everything.
Yeah.
So, I'm just curious if that's, a connection and a wound
Yeah.
for him to kind of explore. Anyway, he needs help communicating, and Lindsay is very comfortable with herself. It seems like, at least,
Yeah.
as we get
Right.
to know her. Like, she doesn't care. She even defends her behavior to him later.
Yeah.
And in the circumstance that we saw, I don't blame her one bit.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that. But as you said, he needs to own, if this just isn't a compatibility thing for you, then that's it. And you need to call a spade and be done, instead of trying to push her to change because she isn't who you want or envision as a wife. That's
Right.
not healthy.
Right.
Yeah. It wouldn't be
Right.
fair for her to ask you to change a dynamic of who you are simply because
Right.
of the husband that she's envisioned for her life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So,
I don't disagree with Lindsay feeling sort of attacked by a request. Let me rephrase this. I don't disagree with Lindsay getting defensive when she is being asked to be a different person in the face
yeah.
of stress or conflict. I don't disagree with that. Rather, I should say I agree with her on that. I disagree with how she handled
Yes.
that request.
I agree. She gets very contemptuous and condescending
Yeah.
when you don't let her be.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's my big thing for her, is like, if you really want a healthy relationship, you have to stop calling someone stupid, a dumbass, an idiot. And, later in what we overhear while she's talking to the producers, I laugh because it's funny what she says, but in context, it's not okay, where she's
Totally.
like, the least he could make me do is orgasm. So, like, saying something like that, like, that's just uncalled for, because it's not helpful in that moment. And again, it's contemptuous. It's like, you think you're so great, the least you can do is do this for me. And
Right.
it's like, nope, not healthy, not helpful in the slightest.
She was so hurt that she took every opportunity to attack him in every domain of his life. So she attacks their sex life, or rather his performance in their sex life. She attacks his income. She attacks his job. She attacks who he is as a person. And
Yeah.
and she attacks his intelligence. So first of all, that's all bark. That is all
Yep.
bark. And if it were me that was in Mark's position, if I was dating someone that responded to conflict that maybe I didn't handle properly, maybe I needed to rework what I was asking and maybe come to terms with that in a different way for myself, because Mark does have a role here. And like we
Right.
said, it makes sense that she got defensive, but in the way that she responded, if that were me and I was on the receiving end of that, I would have been like, deuces, I am
Yeah.
out. There is no person that's going to talk about me the way that you talked about me in response to me saying something that, like, I didn't phrase it right. Absolutely not.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I'm sort of talking about, which I saw that and I was like, I can't help but see it and think, this is what's plagued previous relationships of yours. Because the
Agreed.
first sign of criticism, you're a bulldog.
Yep. Yeah. I completely agree. And that absolutely needs some improvement, because it's, no matter who she's with ever, that's not sustainable, nor is it healthy for her either.
Yeah.
So yeah, my issue, going back to like Mark's words when he was trying to communicate with her, he came at her with language like, this is a team trying to defend his request for her to not be who she is. And I
Yeah.
didn't like that.
Me
Like,
neither. It was
nah,
manipulative.
yeah. Yeah, it was.
And she called him out for it.
She did. And, then when he walked away, that's when she got real nasty. She was like, go call your mom. And she says he's an idiot,
Yeah.
and it just was all downhill from there. So suffice it to say, I was very surprised when the preview for next week's episode came out and they were having lunch together. I was like, oh, okay. So they're going to try and push through this. But what's really needed, and I wish they would call the experts in and do a Hail Mary here, is pure education. They need education on regulating their emotions when things go crazy, and they need education on communicating and fighting fair. Like, it's so, so, so necessary.
Yeah.
Because otherwise this is just going to keep happening.
Yeah.
So
I think what would be important to explore is, like, if this was a couple that you and I were working with, is when, for Lindsay, like, when you feel criticized, what feels at risk in that moment, what leads you to go into attack mode, and can we identify that, and can we learn an alternative way of, like, addressing that need? Can you address it for yourself through emotional regulation? Yeah. Like, how can you self-soothe? And Mark, education around what compromise in a relationship is going to look like. How do I let my partner be themselves while they may live and exist outside of the expectation of what I imagine for myself? Am I okay with that? Or is that a deal breaker for me?
Yep. Completely agree. And if I'm going to take my guess, only because watching her and knowing that she clearly has some mother wounds because of the dynamic with that, I really feel that she hears criticism and immediately jumps to feeling like a little kid, probably not being good enough for whatever reason. And that's what causes her to get so protective and defensive in that way.
Good guess.
That's my guess. I feel like that's where all of our things stem from, is some version of I'm not good enough.
Yeah. And it was reinforced at a young age through some institution. Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh man. We need
someday,
help.
I know, as a collective, that's exactly what I was going to say, is someday I'm going to get a magical wand and wave it over the planet, and this limiting belief will be gone.
Yeah.
Because it really is that's like our plague.
Yeah, we need a "you are enough" pill.
Yeah, we do.
Which really 100%. Is like, it's affirmations.
Yep.
It's affirmations.
Re-brainwash yourself for the good stuff.
Go back to a previous episode where we talk about the benefits of getting naked, looking in the mirror, and saying, you're the bad bitch that you want to be. You already are. So,
yes.
Up to.
Yes. It reminds me of that scene in The Grinch where he's with Jim Carrey's version, where he's like trying on new stuff and he's like, ooh, like in the mirror. That's like, with mirror work, like that's how you want to feel, is like, look at me, and let's also be real. It will not start there. For me, it started with a bucket of tears and reminding myself of what everyone else told me. But let me tell you, nowadays, I'm like, watch me.
Watch me do this. I'm with you on that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Ding.
Next.
Okay.
Stephen Noy.
You know I left them for last on purpose.
100%. I knew exactly why.
Mm-hmm.
Dun-dun-dun.
What were your first impressions of how we see Stephen Noy cohabitate?
Cohabitate?
I don't
know.
Me neither.
We should look that up. I'm trying to go through all my notes just to see. Okay. So I feel like they're doing okay. She's working from home, he's making her lunch, and he makes it a point to say, like, because I don't have like a structured work schedule the way she does, I'm doing my part to help as much as I can. So like he's been cooking a lot for her, or them, I should say,
Yeah.
and doing his thing. Great. And then I thought also what was super cute was when they were doing their housewarming party, they were doing cultural foods.
Yeah.
And they really bonded over that. I thought it was so cute about Steve
The
asking her,
chicken
like, so did
feet.
you grow up eating chicken feet? And he's like, when did you learn that that was weird to other people? And I thought that
Yeah.
that was such a cute conversation for them to relate to one another with, because
Yeah.
that I have never had a chicken foot. Have you? Have you
No,
had a chicken foot?
not with my
So
knowledge.
that's a great way to put it. So it's like, like that's something that's really unique about, the two of them. And then when their friends come over, I thought it was really interesting that they brought up the three kids hard and fast rule.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And so you tell me, like, what were your observations in the way that that came up?
So I appreciated the directness, but the lightness in which that was addressed within like what felt like a shared community. Noy's really good friends, Steve's really good friends, and them all just sort of touching on it,
Yeah.
not shying away from it, but also like giving it the lightheartedness that a public setting requires. What I appreciated that like everyone sort of acknowledged like that was a hard and fast rule. I like that they also sort of flipped on Steve and they were like, what are the things that you're non-negotiable about? And he's like, I'm loosey goosey. And he doesn't phrase it that way. But what we
Yeah.
come to learn and what we continue to learn, sort of a piggyback off of the last episode in our conversation from earlier this week, recapping last week's episode, which is, Steve is not interested in getting a full-time job with a regular like W-2 income structure. And
Yeah.
you and I have talked about how that's okay. Steve knows that's okay because he trusts himself in his skills to be able to stay working and receive income through various like odd jobs, freelance work, what have you. And that because of Noy's background, being like growing up in poverty and working very hard to have stable income and like livable, thriving, stable income, that for her, she says it herself. She's like, I have never not worked. So I don't understand someone choosing not to work. Those are two very different worldviews, and both of them are valid. So as you and I were sort of cleverly touching on, like, they could ease this, they could create compromise by creating, like, Steve could map out a budget and like sort of predict his 1099 type pay structure, his 1099 income, and how it's coming in and what his resources are going to look like every month, so that Noy can understand that doing freelance work, doing odd job work can provide security. It's unfamiliar to someone who's never known that, never had that luxury, but it can be, it can exist. So the thing that comes up for me the most here is Steve knows that. And we know that Noy has no background to understand that organically. So what
Right.
I'm missing from them is Steve explaining that.
Yeah.
Like, provide help her understand it, not in a condescending, patronizing way, but help her understand why this is more stable than to her imagination.
Right. Yeah. Because, and he, her friends even said, she just doesn't want to be the breadwinner. And he's like, it'll never get to that.
Exactly.
And so, and, when I'm watching it, I'm like screaming at the TV because they really need to see the numbers. It's not that he's sitting on his butt eating Twinkies, refusing to do anything because he's just lazy. It's not that. Steve's a really well put together guy. And he even said,
Yeah.
he's like, I have my savings. So I'm wondering if he hasn't shared the numbers with her because he feels it's too soon in their relationship to do that. But I completely disagree if that's the case, because again, this is your wife. You
Yeah.
know that your wife has severe trauma from being raised in a refugee camp for the beginning stages of her life, which we know are the most important years of a baby's life. So those wounds are deep, and they are They are holding on for dear life. And so the only way to subdue Noi's fears is to get real, look at the numbers, and put her mind at ease. And again, make the plan. I don't understand why that's not happening.
Yeah, agreed. I totally agree. I feel like it's a major gap in their communication. Like if they were in a like a couple session, it'd be like, okay, so you're not familiar with people making a living, a stable, reliable income like this. Understood. Based on your background, based on your work history, totally understood. Steve, you have full confidence in your ability to do this because you've been doing it. You know that there's no like limited resource available. Like you're chilling. How do we help each other understand where the other one's coming from? How do we share information from one side to the other so that we can meet in the middle here?
Yep. Yeah.
This isn't even what they get into. Oh, what?
No. And
I'll
get
there.
Again,
I'll get there. Yeah.
Please do a Hail Mary and don't wait for it to get bad. Don't wait for it to get bad. Lean on your resources, especially since the show is providing them. Call in one of the experts to sit down and be like, help us navigate this, because this is a recurring theme. And it's almost like, she brings up the kids like, well, I need to have 3 children, period. And then it's like, well, Steve, you need to get a job. And it's like, this is going to be, because again, in her mind, yes, financial stability, but also for the 3 kids that she refuses to compromise on. So it's like, that's going to be the back and forth argument until someone puts a stop to it. Totally. So please, let's put a stop to it.
I can see them going into the cycle of I want 3 kids and you keep telling me that I can't guarantee 3 kids because of a risk of financial, resources available, but you won't get a job. And they will continue to do that dance until someone intervenes and is like, can we redefine job?
Yes.
Because she keeps saying like, oh, even this bothered me. And I understand, I want to say this in preface that I fully understand Noi's blind spots. Knowing the background that she comes from, I can appreciate entirely that someone choosing not to have a regular 9-to-5, Monday to Friday salaried position looks like not taking an opportunity to have a job, not like saying no to work. When really it's like, when she hears, so you could be gainfully employed, but you're choosing not to, I don't get that. And it's like, you are missing the part of him that is saying, I'm actually choosing not to do that for a reason. And the reason is I want room to be creative. I can make room to be creative by making sure that I have income coming in from these other ways. It's just not traditional.
Yeah. Because it's like, really, her fear isn't the job. Her fear is the money. Yeah. So it's like, dude, if he has, 100,000 sitting in a savings account, will that help you chill the fuck out for a bit? And so it's like, that's what I'm saying is like, they need to have those conversations, because now my next point would be, if they did have the conversations, if they did look at it and she still insisted on the 9-to-5, what is that? Like, let's dig into that wound. What is that? Is it the predictability of it? You're craving that predictability. Is it the health benefits? Is it the 401k matching that companies offer? Like, what is that about? And so, but they're never going to even get to that part of the equation if they can't get through this first, like, okay, let me show you the nest egg I have for myself. Let me show you how much money I do make freelancing right now. Because it's not that he doesn't have a job. He's freelancing. Yeah. There's a difference.
Yeah, there's a total difference.
So, yeah. So I feel like her blinders are so on again because of these deep wounds, that if she cannot make peace, or at least be open-minded to hearing him out, truly hearing him out, this is going to be a hot mess express.
Absolutely. Okay. So the thing that they get into about is, as Alex sort of set us up with, is that Steve's trying to pull his weight by making more of their meals together because Noi is working full time out of the house. So so Steve is like, oh, Noi's trying to make dinner for me. That's really nice. I really appreciate that. They have to eat different kinds of noodles because Noi is gluten-free. So she's making gluten-free noodles, and she's also simultaneously making noodles for Steve, noodles that he can eat, or that he wants to eat rather. And he we don't get the whole thing. We see a weird sort of survey cam with odd captions, going over it. But basically what we understand is that Steve comes over and notices that the noodles are like way overcooked, and probably makes a comment about that, being like, yo, these noodles are overcooked. Like, they're done. Like, I can't even eat them because they're mush. And Noi felt really criticized and packed up her things, like packed up like a backpack, not all of her things, packed up some of her stuff, took her dog, and just left. She was like, I'm out.
Let me hit pause.
Yeah.
Because I quoted him, because I was like,
thanks.
if I heard that, I would have been triggered. And I totally get where he's coming from. But he said, these noodles are totally overcooked. I didn't hear what she said. She said something. Jordan, when we were talking about it last night, he said that she responded and was like, well, I don't eat those noodles. And he goes, you can still check them, right? And then she like snapped.
Pretty condescending.
Yeah. And he said it in like his tone. He was like, you can still check them, right? Like, he tried to make it lighthearted like that. But me just knowing myself, if someone had told me that while I was cooking dinner, I wouldn't have liked it. I would have taken that really personally. But yes, she then grabs her stuff, and according to the captions, it says she exits, saying "fuck this" with her bag and sushi in hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she leaves. She leaves. Steve, who sort of created this dynamic, wasn't exactly sure what he did at first, and had to sort of like in his own reflection have to figure out like, okay, it must have been when I made the comment about the noodles, blah, blah, blah. So he's trying to reach out to her, trying to text her, trying to see if she wants to talk, trying to check in, and she is not responding. He's waiting at home. She's hasn't reached out. He's tried calling her. He can't reach her. He's sort of expecting that she's eventually going to come back before they go to sleep. She doesn't. He tries calling her the next day. He tries reaching out to her the next day. Now he's getting pissed because he was like, where are you? She eventually comes back and sits down on the couch, and you can tell by her body language that she is leaning so far away from this man that there is no part of her that feels safe being there, that wants to be there. And she's historically not actually a great communicator. So when she does get there, she's not saying much. What was your take?
I mean, lots of not okayness. Yeah, like, and then he asks for consent, are you ready to talk? Which I was like, gold star, soft startup, asking for permission. And she responds and is like, I don't know. And if I was Steve at that moment, I would have been like, okay, well, then I think it would be best to like continue to take some space until you do feel ready and comfortable to talk, because I felt like she didn't add much to the conversation. Like, I don't think she expressed herself very well. I think she tried to eventually, but it wasn't, you could just tell she was still in her feels about it.
Yeah. And he had been stewing for so long that when they did start to talk about it, he eventually took on this scolding, lectury tone, which I don't blame him for being upset about her walking out or having an opinion to say.
Me neither.
You don't get to walk out and not tell me anything that's going on, or not like, he was trying to let her know, like, it's okay if you need space. It's okay if you need a moment, but I really need you to let me know, like, a heads up. This is what I'm doing. I'm leaving. I'm going to be back. This is when I think I'm going to be back. Please don't text me, or please do text me. Like, let me know what you need. That way when, whatever. So she comes back, he's just been stewing and raging on. Yeah. So the minute she starts saying things, he's like, no, you shouldn't do that. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the other thing that Noi did that I'm not okay with, I think this is something that, isn't ever okay no matter what, is the post to social media on her story, like with this subliminal messaging very much meant for him. And it's just, that is so passive aggressive and not the way to handle it. And, you know, Steve's right in the sense that you need to communicate. It's fine if you need to take a break. It's fine if you need space. That's totally okay. You know, you're humans. And in order to process and like get clarity on like what it was that upset you and like how do you need to move forward, that's fine. But he's right. She needs to let him know she can't just ignore him and post this weird stuff to social media hoping that he gets the message. And
it's immature.
so when he was standing up, it is immature. And when he was, you know, I agree with you. It came across very lecture. I was like, oh no, Steve, stay in your grounded. Because usually he's so good about like the way he communicates. So we saw a little bit of his emotions get the best of him.
Yeah.
But, you know, this is going to be a hiccup for them if she keeps doing that. Like not more than a hiccup. It's going to be the end all of their relationship.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
I also want to normalize that, like, okay, so I want to focus a moment on her, like, posting on social media. Yes, there's an element here that's, like, subliminally trying to get his attention and get a message across that clearly she wasn't comfortable sharing directly to his face, which I find that to be a really weird symptom of our, like, millennial and more recent generations where we're like, I'm not comfortable bringing this to you, but I am comfortable bringing this to whatever public follows me. So I find that to be really
it's manipulative,
weird.
In my opinion.
And also, like,
because
it's kind of cowardly.
It is cowardly. And the reason I feel it's manipulative is because then if they're like if Steve were to be like, you posted that clearly for me, and she's like, no, like I just posted that because that's something I heard and it really resonated with me. It's like, that's the manipulative aspect of it for me, is it takes away the accountability of like, if you were to come and own like, this hurt me, this isn't okay to me, this is what I would prefer, you have to take that ownership of those requests.
Totally.
And so doing it this way takes the pressure off, but it's so, like you said, emotionally immature.
Yeah. I don't want to normalize that. The thing that I do want to normalize is that seeking support. So let's say she also, there's an element of her that there's a part of her that wanted to post on social media because she wanted people to validate her feelings, validate the challenges that she was going through, or even just be like, yes, raise it up, girl. I got you. Like, that's right. You can say no. And yes, seek support. Go call someone. Go call your friend. Go call your support system and be like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. Like, I need help with this, or I want to vent or whatever. But our toxic use of social media to feel validated, receive attention, or communicate something indirectly that we didn't have the balls to communicate is just,
not okay.
Yeah, we got to come away from it. I know social media is a big part of us, and she eventually does take accountability. She's like, yeah, I shouldn't have done that, but it shouldn't have to take that. Like, think about it before you use social media as this like crutch, because you think that you're just posting some shit because you're alone or whatever, but like your network can see this, your partner's network can see this, and unless you're ready to deal with those consequences, don't do that shit. Go deal with your stuff on your own.
Yep. Yes, 100%. So, red flag, green flag of the week. Red flag. What's your red flag?
I'm going to say Noi leaving without any notice. I want to be clear. I don't fault her for wanting space. I don't fault her for wanting like some time to collect herself. I don't fault her for being upset by Steve's comment. But if it was space that she needed to provide some like captions, some closed captions of like, this is what I'm doing and this is why I'm doing it. So that your partner knows what to expect. Because think about it, Steve's pretty regulated, and he seems like he's got pretty secure attachments. But imagine if this was someone with an anxious attachment, biggest fear.
Oh my God. Yeah. And I think we saw that in him come out. That's why he's asking for that. He's like, I need you to tell me. That's like, and that, yes, healthy communication. But sitting there tripping all night long. Oh, I have been there before. It is
Yeah.
not fun. It's
So
sickening.
also an actual personal red flag for me is if I was dating someone and I did something that they didn't like. Actually, this has happened to me, and this is why it's a red flag for me now. If I did something that you didn't like, or we're going through something, and you take to Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter,
Absolutely not.
Facebook, and you air out our shit in some weird cryptic like whatever-ness, I swear to you, I will be out of there so fast. So fast.
Yes.
I can't tolerate
Agreed.
that. I am
Same. I would
people
never.
no. People think that I'm not a private person because like I'll get on the internet and say some dumb shit, but it's like a monologue of a bit. It's a bit. Let's be real. I don't deal with my personal stuff when I'm going through stuff. I do not put that on social media. So it's really hard for me to have some sympathy for. Oof. Okay.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yours.
My red flag is Lindsay's contemptuous statements that she reaches for when she's feeling hurt.
Yep.
Girl, you're never going to have a successful long-term relationship if that's what you reach for and lean on to try and feel better about yourself, to try and feel protected and all of those things. And so my counsel to anyone who maybe sees that in themselves or is wondering how to avoid that is get curious about the wound that becomes very raw and open, that triggers you to reach for that kind of language. Because until you solve that, that is going to be habitual and it's not serving.
Yeah, dude.
It's not serving you. It's not serving the relationship.
That knowledge is power. Like,
totally
looking at your patterns and noticing that you blow up or whatever your response is that is not helpful for you or your partner. Knowing why that happens, what part of you is like screaming, that leads to that unwanted behavior. Understanding that is not only going to help you long-term in your life, but it's going to, excuse me, another mini belch. It's going to help your partner for the partner that you're with now, the partner that you're with in the future, to be able to say, hey, when you do this, this is this is the part of me that it upsets. This is why. That's how we reach changes in our relationship dynamics. That's how we change our behaviors. That's how we learn how to fight friendlier.
Yeah. Conflict is always uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's just finding a way to navigate it to make it as comfortable and easy and less violent or volatile as possible. That matters. Because it's like no one likes conflict, please.
Yeah.
No one likes it. So, approach your partner with that mindset in mind and be like, hey, how would you prefer to handle conflict?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Green flags.
Green flag. Okay. Michael's curiosity.
Yes.
In trying to best learn about how to manage conflict with Jasmina in a way that she responds better to. How does he honor his needs, his position, while allowing Jasmina to open up, facilitate trust, and like check in and express what's going on for her on her side.
Yeah.
What about you?
That's good. This is it's interesting to give, but I'm going to give it because I think that this is important and it's also something that's very uncomfortable for people to do. Both Steve and Noi taking ownership when they did finally have that conversation, like her being like, okay, yeah, I probably shouldn't have posted to social media, and him being like, I'm willing to apologize. Like, I get that, and them both kind of taking part in what their parts were in that conflict. I feel like there's still some fine tuning that could be done, but the fact that they both are willing to at least own their mistakes, especially Noi in this example, being like, "Ooh, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that." That's huge.
Yeah.
Because a partner who cannot own up and be like, "Ooh, yeah, that's something that I shouldn't have done," that's just not sustainable. Because we all, like I said, we all have our stuff. So
yes.
That's a
And
green
different.
flag. I'm glad she can own it.
I totally agree, and very different from the I'm sorry, but, you know?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Huge.
pretty rad.
Okay, cool.
We have a
Reddit
question.
queue. We
We have
do.
a question.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. Just hit a quick note. Okay. Title is the It's Not You, It's Me text and how to cope. So, context, this is someone who's receiving the It's Not You, It's Me. So,
Yeah.
they write, I've been talking to a really awesome woman for a few weeks now. We went on a date and seemed to have a good time. She said she liked my quote energy and wanted to get to know me more on a second date. We were supposed to go out this Saturday and I got a text this morning saying basically she's been thinking, doesn't feel like she's in a place to date right now, hopes that I understand, etc. Deeply disappointing, but fair enough. I thanked her and wished her well, and that was that. But on my side, I'm almost heartbroken. I really, really liked her. She's everything I could ask for in a partner on the surface, and we have a lot in common. I'm at work right now, and I can't focus because I'm so sad. I want to cry. That's not normal for me. I'm almost always leveled out in my emotional state. It's so rare that I am even interested enough to ask someone out, and I really thought I had a chance with her. Now I just feel very alone, like I'm not good enough, like I will never be good enough. I don't want to be with someone to just be with someone. I want to be with someone I want to be with. This doesn't feel like getting rejected in my 20s when I didn't have a career, money, life, etc. It seems like the older I get, the more rejection like this hurts because a more complete version of me is being rejected each passing year. How do you cope with this kind of thing? What do you do to get past it? Why does it hurt so bad after only one date and 2 weeks of talking? Hmm.
Oh my gosh, my brain's going to so many different answers. Um, First of all, this is something that everyone can relate with.
Yeah.
And it's painful.
Yeah.
And on the surface, the best thing you can do is take them at their word. It's not a reflection of you. It's very much a reflection of where they're at in their life and what they're looking for. It doesn't mean that you're not worthy or that you're not good enough. And I know that
Yeah.
that's really hard to hear and hard to believe in those moments where emotions are so strong. The way that I would say get past it is to let yourself feel and to let yourself grieve. That's okay. You're allowed to, like we've said in previous episodes, you're allowed to grieve the hope, the loss of hope that you had in this connection. And the short answer for why does it hurt after only one date and 2 weeks of talking, you've grown accustomed to hearing from this person regularly. And we know what happens to the hormones in the body when we have cute people texting us. That dopamine hit feels so good because you're like, someone likes me, someone out there is texting me and they want to get to know me.
Yeah.
And so we quite literally become addicted to that. And then the one date, obviously, that just grows even more. And then your brain starts to fantasize about all the different possibilities.
Yeah.
I think that's Campbell's jingle. And so the reason it hurts so bad is because of that. Your body's also detoxifying and kind of having to readjust back to your regular normal. And this new normal was so exciting and thrilling. And like I said, provided a lot of hope for what could be. And so let yourself feel. That's that.
Let's be real. Like, you liked this person, and it doesn't really matter that you didn't know them for very long. Like, you liked them of what you did get to see from them. You liked. There's no blaming yourself for like getting too invested too quickly, feelings wise. Like, you liked them. You were hopeful that things were going to turn out better, and they didn't. And that sucks. That's very different than taking rejection from someone that like wasn't that interesting to you.
Right.
I think it's really interesting to be in the position of, as I get older and my life fills out in a more fulfilled way, I take rejection as being rejected of a whole self, of a whole life. And that was really interesting to me because personally I feel very different. The older I get and the more that I build for myself independent of my failed romantic relationships, I feel more secure in the fact that like, listen, you didn't want to be part of my life. You didn't want to like see where this went. All right, boo, like keep it moving. Like cause I have these other things that I'm also rooted in.
Right.
But I can appreciate that you feel like I'm such a good candidate. And I feel like Chris is from Married at First Sight, like sort of was in this place.
Yeah.
Like I'm such a good candidate. I finally feel really open, really ready. Like if there was ever a time for me to be ready to take it off into relationship, rocket ship with someone and have it be the best, most successful, healthiest relationship I can possibly imagine having, it would be the version of me that's now. And while that might be true for you, there's a whole other person here to consider, and with a whole other different timeline and different set of like standards and values of what they're looking for. And you just happen to not be it. It's not that personal.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so lean on the things that you have that are thriving and fueling your day-to-day life. Like, again, this does not determine your worth. And there's someone out there who is dying for a partner like you and looking for a partner just like you. And so remind yourself of that. Because it's true, boo. Keep going. Yeah. The end. You did it. So guys, make sure you stay tuned because a lot of exciting things are happening. Obviously, in the next week with Bri and I going to Vegas, and we have so many fun things that are planned that we keep teasing you about. But let me tell you, it's going to be freaking awesome. So just like I said, check out our socials. If you don't follow us on Instagram or TikTok yet, same handle at Ditch the Script Pod. You should definitely hang out with us there. In addition, if you have a question about your dating or relationship life that you would like us to answer for you anonymously on our show, visit our website, ditchthescriptpod.com, and submit it, and we will send you an email when your question is published in our episode. Other than that, leave us a rating and a review. Help us grow.
Yeah, share with your friends. Yeah. Be like, hey, I know these two girls, and they have like a cool thing, and they're doing it. We love, share the knowledge, share the wealth. We're trying to help people adopt healthier behaviors, and we can only do that by sharing it with each other.
Yep. And that's it. Other than that, we'll see you, or I guess you'll listen to us next week.
That's right. Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.